Welcome to the latest edition of Rugby Unfiltered. My name is Jan de Koning.
And Loffie Elof.
Eugene, before we get to the nitty-gritty of today's very interesting podcast, just from our friends at Brian Air, who gave us such a lovely punt. Thanks very much for their interest and their like. So we'll give them a like back. And so if you're into the air industry, in flying, if you're a pilot, please go to Brian Air Podcast, and we'll put a link in the bottom downstairs. And then you can just follow them. They're good friends of ours. Eugene, with the business done and with the bills paid, we had a very interesting weekend.
Yes, Sean, indeed we did. And it's getting more interesting after every weekend from now on. And everybody's so into the conflict of what has happened with the referees, the cards, and so on. And one thing we have to say, we are super proud of our boys in the second match with 14 on the field, that pulling it through, that kept their composure. But let's forget about that. Let's forget the result. There are two concerns for me, and I'd like to discuss or hear your opinion on the first one. Let's talk about World Rugby. And is it a conspiracy? Are they becoming like a dictatorial? Because the coaches seem to not want to make any remarks because of the bans that they might get. And if you listen to what Rassie said and Stig, it's total frustration. And Jan, it doesn't stop there. It was coaches all over the world already that have complained about the same. Do we have a process where they can have complaints that they are listened to, that we can improve the system with the world of rugby?
Eugene, there is a system in place, but I'm not always sure if that system is being followed. I think the big problem for me is consistency on the field. And I think the Springboks are, as you said, walking on eggshells at the moment. Rassie, Stig less so. Stig was a bit more forthright in his comments. But Rassie had a one-year ban, we all know, and he's very careful on what he says. You know, he kept apologizing to Italians for the game being messed up. But I think what is clear is that the number of mistakes that are being made, or number of calls that are questionable. In the first half, 21 calls were made, and 20 of them were against the box. Now, that is what causes the conspiracy theories. Whether it is a conspiracy is doubtful. I don't think it's a deliberate conspiracy. It might just be incompetence or people that are power hungry, perhaps. So the Bok team has suggested that most of the troubling calls were made by outside officials, which may well be a dig at the TMO and his team, which are making these calls. Rassie clearly said that the referee and his AR were good officials, experienced officials, but he spoke about all the chatter in the chatter box and all the noise coming from that side. And that clearly suggests that there's something outside of the field of play, and Stig made it clear. I think what is... We know that the Springboks have been suspended for incidents that are not carded in other games. And I think we'll listen to Rassie now, but the first thing is, if we go look at games like France against Fiji or Ireland against Australia, some of those clear-outs and some of those tackles are far worse than what Louis de Jager was banned for. So now you've got this thing and that is why people are saying, no, there's a conspiracy. And your question is legitimate. But I don't think it's a conspiracy. I just think that people are getting overexcited, and officials sit there, and a TMO sits there, and he's maybe not experienced enough, and he's starting to make calls, and every little thing he sees, he's now got this wonderful opportunity to look at all these screens and big screens and technology that he can play with, and he gets overexcited and maybe makes the calls. But I think it's a good time now maybe to listen to what Rassie said, and then we'll chat a bit afterwards, and then we'll listen to what Stig said. But let's listen to Rassie first.
It is what it is. What I'd say here can't make a difference. I'm just very grateful that we had Ben O'Keefe on the 1AR side and the referee's experience course. Obviously, we've got the referee mic on, and all the noise that was coming from there was difficult just to follow the match. So we later just put off the speaker, and I'm not saying this in any negative way. It was just very busy and a lot of calls made from there. What I can say it's sad that our captain in his 100th game and his next game had to sacrifice, I always thought we want to get to 20-minute red cards and have a recheck on that. I thought that's the way to go. It's not my place to talk about it. Also, a captain like him to twice in a week have to suffer for us to win because I'm not saying the referee made the wrong call, but I definitely saw a lot of other shots in the game. That was the first tackle he took was right against the head. So, no, well, it's tough. I'm not saying anybody was wrong. I just thought the balance on calling the headshots was not as equal. Yeah. So, but then I'm not criticizing. That's what I experienced live. And when we review the game, we might come to a different conclusion and just see that we were totally wrong most of the time. And then we have to go and rectify it.
Yes, Sean, if you listen carefully to Rossi and his emotion in his talk, he is totally frustrated, and he knows whatever he's going to say is going to go nowhere and fall on deaf ears, or nobody's going to react on that. But it sort of puts you in no man's land. And to hear Rossi actually respecting the process that much, and he also knows that from here, whatever he says, nothing can be done. And maybe it's a good time to listen to what Stick says as well now.
Eugene, I just want to touch on, you mentioned Rossi. The one thing that he said right at the end of his, he mentioned that we will review and maybe we were wrong. 2 days later, after they clearly had their review on the Monday, Stick really, he became more frustrated and more bold in his explanation about the outside influences, the people outside of the field. And they clearly are not frustrated with the officials on the field, the match officials. They are clearly frustrated. And you'll hear it in Stick's declaration as well, in his statement as well. They are very frustrated with what is outside of the field. And again, I think that points to the TMO and his calls, and maybe some calls from Italian, because Rossi clearly said it. They just switched the mic off because they couldn't handle all the talk and all the chatter. So, and the other sad part, and Stick mentioned as well, is that Sia was sacrificed 2 weeks in a row, including in his 100th game against France in Paris. So that is very, very frustrating for the team, that when they want to play proper rugby, and Stick said, he feels sorry for Italy because they also play decent rugby, that the whole game was spoiled by people outside of the field. But let's listen to Stick.
But yeah, once again, I think at the moment as a team, we're just disappointed with how things are flowing at the moment. Probably look like every week we're losing players, and it's sad that the build up towards the Italy game, it was good. If you look at the Italian side, how they've played even the previous week, and the spirit in Turin, everyone was looking forward to the game, and then for the game to turn the way it was, because if you're saying that Franco Mostert is a red card, probably there would have been over the weekend. If you saw the incident that happened over the weekend, surely it was supposed to be more than 5, red cards, and then all of a sudden other situations, they become yellow card. And then I think we're just disappointed with the way things are being handled at the moment, because once again, if you look at the actions of Franco Mostert, even with Lord Diaga the previous week, he has done everything but a book. Was probably just the only mistake was just maybe the conduct was here, but it ended up in the head. So I don't understand how does that become permanent red card. But I think for our side as coaches, we still have to work hard because we're working with these guys. We can see they're nice and tall. They try to do everything by their book, but because of rugby is a physical game, sometimes you don't get it perfect. But for them to say those were the tackle was never legal, it's disappointing, because of one thing, like I said, that game could have been a very nice, beautiful game of rugby to watch. Italy, they deserve the respect, and I felt like, they had everything in their powers to control the game. So for other people to get involved, and I feel for the ref because we understood the communication that was happening between him and his team outside him. Probably about 21 decisions that were supposed to be made in the first half. Probably first 45 minutes, 20 of them went against us. Not because of the ref. Unfortunately, he has to respect the comms from his team outside. So yeah, disappointed at it, but once again, I feel for Italy, and would like to apologize how things turned out, because they've got a good coaching staff, and then their players also were up for the game. But for other things to happen like that, I don't think they deserve what they got in that game.
I mean, you handled the red card very well. Do you think you're being treated unfairly, Springboks, with these decisions?
I'm not too sure. I don't want to say things and then I end up also being banned like I've seen in the past, But once again, if you look at the past 4 red cards in our players, we had Magazole Mapimpi, suspended, who's not on tour at the moment. The guy's on 47 test matches. Missed out an opportunity to make it to 50. Jan Hendrik Wessels, a youngster, also missed out. Suspended. Lloyd Diaga, which I feel like, after this weekend and everything that I've seen, even the Fiji and the France game, the cleanouts that were there, the island game against Australia, situations that were even worse than what those guys have been suspended for. And then for them, they suspended. But other players will come back and play this week. So surely somewhere, somehow, this is not fair. And I don't think we deserve this as a team. We're doing everything in our powers to make sure that we send the right message when it comes to how we play the game. We play in a good spirit. We never talk bad about other teams. We always try to play in a good spirit, and hopefully things can just be between the 4 lines, So are we treated fairly? I don't think so.
Yes, Jan, as you can hear, getting back to the coaches being frustrated, the word I've used 3 times already. I think it's very simple. And in the beginning we talked, is there a protocol? Yes, there's a protocol. Maybe protocol is just too social. Is there standing work procedures? So I've got the answer for them. A referee, no player runs onto the rugby field to play badly. No referee goes on the field to whistle badly. So what is wrong? So I said it's very simple. The referee should have a code of conduct, and also the personnel supporting him, and have responsibilities, what his responsibilities. And I say a referee should not have the sole sanction to give a red card immediately. I think red cards, by always, should be going to a bunker, as they call it, and the TMOs. Now, it brings me to the next thing. We talked about it. If TMOs and the bunker are useless and not trained, specialized to look at these sort of things, and don't know the laws, we can have this frustration on and on and on. Those guys that are sitting in that bunk and the TMOs should be just as good as the referee on the field, knowing the laws and knowing the procedures that they have to follow to get to that decision.
I agree with you 100%. I think this is a case of people need training. And I think what's happened in the last few weeks in this year-end campaigns for right across all the Nation Series matches is that there's this gluttony of very questionable calls, and people, it looks like, and I know that's why the conspiracy theories come, but there's more a case for me almost of incompetence, that these guys are inexperienced and get overexcited. It's like a kid that plays for the first time. He goes on there and he runs on very fast, and suddenly his energy is gone because all that adrenaline is gone, and he makes mistakes. I think that's the thing, is those guys need to be trained, and I'm sure they are being trained, but to throw them in at the deep end and things like that, when these guys are making, we've seen disciplinary process, exactly the same thing. There's a process, and then somebody makes a call which makes no sense whatsoever, but they have to be followed because that person was put there as the chairman, and he made that call, and you have to live with that call, and it messes up a player's career. So it's very, very sad. But let's move on to a game. Rassie will name his team on Thursday. It's going to be interesting. But I think there's a couple of names that might not be there, Eugene. And I'm always scared that, we know that Rassie is going to make a lot of changes again, and he's going to throw the A team out there. But I think this is such a big game. I'm almost scared that all this noise around match officials might spill over into the Ireland game.
Jan, I believe it won't happen. If you also listen to what Rassie said, people saying it picks an A side or a B side. It's not about an A and a B side. It picks a team that are fresh, first of all, and then secondly, that is right for the game plan they're going to play against their opponents. We all know that Ireland, to us, because of most probably social media and attacks we had previously about cheating and so on, they will go into this game very professional. He will pick the best side that he can to play the game plan they have to, and that it's going to be a great match. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Ireland, I do believe that they have the self-belief that they can beat us, especially after this weekend's match. But I just think we also, with some mishaps or negative stuff that happened to us now, it also brings the team closer together and a strong unit, and we're going to be very difficult to beat.
I agree with you. It's a very, to me, this is like the game. I know the France game was big, but to me, this is the game. That atmosphere in Dublin already, after their big win, that atmosphere in Dublin is building up. And I've got family there. They paid £160 per ticket. Now, just to put it in perspective for South Africans, that's 3,200 Rand per ticket just to go watch a match. But I think sometimes it's worth it. It's like a one-in-a-lifetime experience. You go there and you watch this game. And I just hope for the sake of those people that pay such good money that they get to enjoy a good game of rugby, regardless of whether the Springboks win or lose. Let's just hope that we have a clean, good game of rugby on Saturday. And I will still put my money on the Springboks. I'm sure your money will be on Ireland, Eugene, but my money is definitely on the Springboks.
Well, Jan, that's your perception. I hope there's a lot of guineas in town because they're going to need it. I think already, if you think about this match, I think that the teams are not under pressure. The officials are under pressure because they know the world's rugby eyes are on them not to make a mistake, not to get criticized. So I think Ireland's going to be up for it. We're going to up for it, I say, Boks by 5+. Jan, let's go to a more light or different subject, and that is bringing the youth into the Springbok side. We talked about Zachary Porton last week, and there was talks about Siphelele being called up, which didn't happen. And we also talked about that it's the right platform, maybe to bleed the youngsters. But I thought about it again. For players of 21, 22 that have just come out of junior levels, playing against the Ireland, for instance, playing against France, even Italy, which is a good side, maybe we should rethink because they are in the tight five. And it could be that maybe just too early. And I always remember Conrad Jantjies told me that if you're good enough, you're old enough. But maybe in this instance, we need to be smart enough.
I agree with you, Eugene. When you're good enough, you are old enough. But in this case, this guy is raw. And what people don't seem to understand, when you say Italy, you say, oh, yeah, that's just Italy. This Italy front row is one of the most experienced and powerful front rows in the game. They did a number on France. They did a number on Ireland. And not by winning the game, but by really playing good rugby and putting their set pieces under pressure. And people miss that point, that this is not a weak front row, a poor Italian front row. And poor Zachary Porton looked at the grass all day. He was more on his knees and with his head in the grass than anything else. So after just 19 minutes, Rassie rightfully just pulled the poor kid from the game, saved him any further embarrassment, because he was being penalized and scrummed in submission. Not all the Italian scrumming was legal, but he wasn't experienced enough to deal with that. So, and I know it's sad. I'm not saying Zachary Porton is a poor player. He's a very good, very talented player, but it was perhaps the wrong game. And Rassie did the right move by pulling him off after 19 minutes. Because by then he had one ball carry because he spent most of the time with his head between his legs looking at the grass. And then he had 2 tackles. And clearly he wasn't productive enough. And that's Rassie's game. If he finds that, it doesn't mean he's going to throw the kid away. He just decided it's not a good thing to leave that kid on the field. Bring in Wilco Louw. Even Wilco Louw, who we all know is a strong scrummager, he struggled against those Italian props. Same with Bowen Venter. Bowen Venter only lost half an hour, 30 minutes. And then Stennekamp came on. And he also struggled because the Springbok scrum was under pressure. When Bowen had 3 ball carries and 1 tackle, 1 successful tackle. Other than that, him and Zach Porton scrummed and looked at the grass and looked up just to see the referee penalizing or referee calling. And they were really under pressure. And I think it was the right thing. And people asked, when we were watching, people around me asked me, what's going on? What's going on? So Rassie knows that the scrum is in trouble. So he's doing the right thing by just putting somebody a bit more experienced. And the scrum settled after that. We still struggled, but at least the front rows could play and the backline could play, and our backline and the rest of the team could get into the game. And that's the important thing. I think that's the genius of Rassie. He's not scared to make tough calls. we don't always understand those calls. But I don't think Rassie is scared to make tough calls. I think, Eugene, you might have made a few tough calls in your life.
No, any coach does, and you take a risk. Sometimes it's calculated, sometimes it's less calculated. But I take something positive from this. The young players will never be thrown away. They've been bled now. This is a part of a process, and those youngsters know now what Test rugby is about. Every level you play higher is quicker, less time for mistakes, and so on. So something positive will come from that. But as you said, at the right time, Rassie pulled the plug, also for the sake of our team and most probably the individual himself.
Eugene, yes, you are so right. It's the right thing for Rassie to do, and we know he will back these players, and he won't berate them in public. We know there's a classic case of Chiliboy Ralepela, who also at a very young age was taken on a tour, maybe too young. He was even captain the box in a midweek non-test match. And people forget that, but he was forgotten because he was never the same, because that broke the poor kid, and he got into trouble for other things later because emotionally he never recovered. I think we got two other classic cases, even better cases. There's and our dear friend Nick Mallet to this day admits that maybe he was wrong for berating them in public. But we had Dave van Huysel and Gaffie de Toey, and that famous test in Dunedin, where they didn't have a good game. We lost to the All Blacks, and Nick Mallet had a full go at them, and the poor kids were never the same. I mean, they both played a few games, but they were just never the same. And players that had like really long, or could have had long careers, their careers were very short-lived because they just never could recover from that. So I think Rassie, to finish on a positive note, I think Rassie did the right thing, and he will make sure that this kid is not thrown on the rubbish dump.
That is spot on. And in 2005, Chiliboy Ralepela was our hooker when we won the Junior World Cup in Durban, the under-19s. And undoubtedly, Chiliboy was the best hooker in the world at that stage. His general game is throwing in, and because of circumstances, he disappeared. And that's sad. And I think there's a lesson to be learned that we need to manage the players and release them at the right time.
Eugene, 100%, I agree with you. As we all know, you were the coach of that team. You had intimate knowledge of that young man, and it's sad that he goes. So I think on that positive note, let's leave it there. Thank you very much again for chatting to us, Eugene, and thank you for the viewers to watch us.